So you said I could share my screen?
Let me sign you up. You have presenter privileges now, Mike.
Okay, let me see if I can figure this out.
Right.
Everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, I apologize for my orange text. I just, the blue and white was driving me nuts. I needed more contrast.
I like the orange.
I'm not trying to look like the governor's presentations either.
Oh, sure. Everybody aspires to that, don't they?
First of all, it's just a special shout out, and this is basically a presentation that I'm proposing to give on Tuesday of next week. But just a shout out to all the folks that have been coming in since this pandemic started and everything that they've done. I know that we're all very appreciative of what they've done.
Nice.
So the propositions that we are proposing are an annual budget of $23,909,000, and of course the 2 buses. From what was originally proposed with the 3 previous budget presentations, we've made some changes, and on another slide I'll show you why. Basically, the 275,000 change comes from the following. In terms of staffing, and most of that is in, I have to break this budget into 3 parts. And you can see the 3 categories there. Although it says program, I want to make it clear we're not cutting programs. The dollar amount that you see, the 303,000, comes from, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 retirements. We're proposing to not replace one of the elementary school teachers. And then I've budgeted all of the other replacements, 2 teachers and an aide, obviously at a more entry level dollar amount than what they retired at, as well as the salary, the benefits that go with that. So that's a chunk. That's the major chunk of that. It's about 225,000. Also included in there is we are very close with CSEA. In fact, we basically agreed to both sides. They're putting the language together, and the only thing left is for CSEA to vote on the contract. That will present some significant savings as well, which is included in the 303,000. And also included in there is some equipment which we had budgeted for next year, which we were able to purchase out of this year's budget, namely the security cameras. The capital increase is for a full-time custodian that we're budgeting for. We're still not completely sure what it's going to look like as we reopen and what our schedule is going to be like, but considering the emphasis on cleaning and disinfecting, we feel like we're going to need some additional people power in that department to help us out with that.
Mike, did you give any further consideration to what came up at the B&G meeting the other night about possibly hiring that needed custodian as soon as possible?
I mean, we can do that. I thought the intent was to budget for it for next year.
Well, I was just thinking about the discussion that we had in B and G. Rick was saying he's got 3 machines and one is really just sitting. He just needs an operator. And as we get closer to school openings, it's going to be really a lot of work, probably more on the custodial area than anybody. And so there'll be a demand in the region for that position. And if we got out in front of that, we'd get maybe a better qualified person.
Okay, well, let me get through to the end here and maybe we can talk about that.
Sorry.
That's okay. So this really just shows you the change from year to year. And I'm going to go forward to a different slide that has this all in one. This just gives me an opportunity to put in some really cool pictures of what's going on out there. And just to let folks know that school is definitely still very much in operation. So this is what it looks like year to year. Basically, we're proposing a 4% budget to budget increase. With a 1.5% tax levy. Included in this is a 15% decrease to foundation aid. You don't see 15% as a decrease on the state aid line item because as far as I know, and I don't know any different, a lot of the other categorical based aids are running as they normally would. So I'm projecting that we're going to get that money. And then I took out 15% of foundation aid, basically 15% of $1.5 million.
Mike, you said 0.4, correct? 0.4?
0.4 for a budget to budget increase. That's the bottom line. But for a tax,
Hey, Mike, I'm sorry. Before we move off the state aid, what was the assumption for you that you're using for the 15% reduction in foundation?
it's the only, and it's all speculation. What's being thrown around is 10 to 20% cut.
Yeah, because I keep hearing 20, but
so I'm splitting the difference, and we don't know, is that a cut to foundation aid? Is that a cut to all of our aid?
right.
If we certainly have reserves if it ends up a lot different than what I'm projecting here, but I don't have a target.
Yeah, I don't want to derail you, but it might be a worthwhile exercise to take like an overall 20% reduction across the board in state aid and just see what that number looks like. Just maybe be prepared for that number.
Okay. You mean 20% to all of state aid?
Correct. Like just say worst case scenario type thing, Don't put it in the budget, but just let's maybe understand what that number is.
Okay. And the other,
What that would mean to the budget, obviously.
okay. Does anybody else have any questions on this?
I don't have a question, Mike, but I like all the pictures that you included because I think it's so important for folks to understand what is still happening and how our programming is being implemented. So thank you for including all that.
Oh, no problem. I actually had a lot of fun getting various images from multiple teachers.
Is there any way we could put that on the website as a loop or something? It's so inspiring.
Yeah, I love what's in the middle here because these are two elementary kids that without the teacher are texting back and forth to help each other through a problem.
I like it.
Lynn, springing off what you said, what what are we doing as a district? I know we have the budget presentation, but what are we doing besides that to help the voters understand how fiscally responsible this budget is? Do we have other ways to get that information out?
Was that to me?
Anybody, as a district, are we putting things like putting things on the website, or is there any? I know we have Tuesday's meeting, and then we have the on the 26th. We have evening.
So Katie, I can answer a little bit of it probably. But there is yes, it does go on the website, the budget. There is also, I believe, a mailer that goes out regarding the budget that talks the numbers, and the report card goes out as well, does it not, Mike?
Yes. Actually, I have to have it done by the 21st, I think. So.
Yeah. So I think, to your point, Katie, I mean, I think to what your point is, there are things that go out, but I think it would be a good idea to be continuing to think about ways that we could communicate the necessities that are in the budget.
Right.
Mike, are you able to go backwards to the slide that kind of breaks down on one slide the increase or decrease per component?
This here?
No, it was earlier. That's revenues. I think you hit it. No, you were on it.
Found two, Fran. Oh, there, almost.
One more. What's that one? What's the change there? That was the question. One back. You have talking points to each of these changes, I assume. Was the administrative component, was that the state aid that you were accounting for, or was there something else?
The budget to budget changes.
That slide right there.
This is primarily taking out Jeff's.
Okay, thank you. That answers the question.
Yep. Any other questions?
And just to Katie's point, we do have the budget newsletter that's going out. And then once we get through this, Mike is going to send out this presentation, and he's going to talk through it to all the faculty and staff. And then we'll also be promoting it on the website. So if you have any other ideas, Katie, really let us know. I know, because this is such an odd way to get our message out, but the budget newsletter is going out.
Right. And with that, I guess it's, the wording is so important to make it so user friendly to understand, the picture behind the numbers in terms of decisions that have been made to make sure folks understand that it's been a very thoughtful process to be as fiscally responsible as possible. So thank you.
Just give me a second here. I'm going to switch presentations. Hopefully. Everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay. So, every week we're updating this to see where we're at for fund balance. And obviously this year's, looks different than any year since or will be. But it looks like between estimated revenue and estimated expenses, we're going to end up with a $624,000 surplus. if you add that to what we started for unreserved and unappropriated and to our legally established reserves, our projected fund balance will be a little over $5 million at June 30th, 2020. Of the unreserved, unappropriated, we can take 4% and put that in our unassigned fund balance. We're looking to appropriate $950,000. So basically take the savings and then some and roll it into next year. And that leaves us with $687,000 that we could add to various reserves.
Sorry.
I'm not going to go through each one of these in great detail. What I'd rather do. These are all reserves that we already have. What probably would be more beneficial is to get to the summary. Obviously, we're going to need to put some money in our unemployment insurance reserve. We're going to use $10,000, and we're looking to put some more into that. Same with the employee retirement system. We will use $180,000 out of this year's budget. That was we've appropriated a total of $310,000. So what you see in red on each of these slides is where we're using that $310,000 this year. For the ERS, we typically try and keep 2 to 5 years worth of contributions, and they run about $300,000 a year. So we've dipped a little bit below that 2-year amount at $581,000. So we're going to need to put some more in there. Same with the teachers' retirement system. That works a little bit different. We are limited each year as to what we can put in there. We can put in 2% of the previous year's TRS salary. That's going to work out to, I think, roughly $170,000. So we want to get to the point where we max out this reserve. We can keep up to 10% of the previous year's TRS salary in this reserve for future use. Student devices, we'll use $20,000 out of that this year. So we're looking to put more in there. I think we'll be okay with the disability insurance reserve. We're going to need tax cert reserve money. The estimates for our exposure to tax certs right now exceeds the balance. So we're looking to put money into the tax cert reserve. And that balance is the most up-to-date balance after paying our latest settlement with the Georgian. Employee benefits, we'll certainly use that to replenish it. And ultimately, we'd like to get to a point where we have funding in this reserve that covers what our estimated future liability is for this reserve, which is about $957,000. I think we'll be okay with our repair reserve. And for the capital reserve, we'll do a building condition survey this fall. And certainly, you can bet that in 5 years, there'll be another capital project. And to lessen the amount that we're going to go out and borrow, we really should look to start to put some money away each year, building towards that, similar like you've done in the past with other capital projects. So all in all, this is what it looks like in terms of our legally established reserves. We've got our starting balance, what we're using this year, and where we'd like to, and these are all estimates, so nothing's going to work out exactly like this, but this is where we'd like to place some money and continue our system of using reserves where appropriate and continuing to keep them well funded. Just looking out, I just wanted to remind folks that, we're on a schedule where we have bond issuances that at certain points will, quote, fall off the schedule. So for fiscal year ending 2026, we would be looking to issue new bonds for a new capital project. Because if we don't do that, that would have catastrophic effects on our tax cap, which you can see looking over. Don't get too bogged down with the numbers here. Just look at the red. And if we didn't do that, our maximum levy that we can go out to the public would drop to a level of 0.77%, which would not be good. So that's it for my presentations. Does anybody have any questions on this?
A lot of hard work, Mike.
I have a couple of comments, Mike.
Yeah.
The one for you, really, I think, like the bus proposal.
Yes.
I know we're on a schedule of bus replacement, and that marries up to debt obligations that are falling off, and so that those are married together. I think it would be a good idea to get a good mind's eye picture on that, so that, because I think there might come into question, do you really need to do the bus replacement? And I think understanding the condition of the buses that are being replaced, and how this proposal for the voters, how it fits into the debt schedule, and why it makes sense at this time.
Do you want me to add something to the budget presentation?
I think, yes, I think it would be helpful to make sure people are hearing that. We've heard it before, but I think it's something that needs to be said, especially in these times. Because I think an easy question is, well, why don't you just delay that replacement? So I think you need to be prepared for that question with those answers. If that's the case, if we can't delay the replacement.
I can tell you a real life story about the bus that took the Vex robotics team out to the state, out to Syracuse, and the state's actually broke down and had to be left behind. So I can attest that we need we have some issues on an old bus.
Yeah. I'm not saying there's not issues, and I'm just saying those questions are likely to come.
Well, I think your point, Tim, is good, and being proactive and just reminding folks that it's on a rolling schedule, and that as they age out, we're replacing them, but the debt schedule is set to keep it flat. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought Mike lost connection. He just texted me. He lost connection, so
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm wondering what he was doing there.
It looks like Lynn has lost connection too. So I'm wondering if it's a school thing.
Oh, we still got is Fran out? No, Fran is on too.
So is Jim.
Oh, do they have another meeting?
Talk about them.
No, but I think you're right, Tim, and we can talk about this when they come back, but being as proactive as possible in helping folks understand things so that they feel confident.
So yeah, the other thing, and what we can talk about this, and then when everybody comes back in, we'll say it again. But the other, as he was doing the presentation, the other hot point in the budget that I see is teacher retirement replacements. And I know he mentioned that there was one at the elementary school that they were not going to be replaced, but I think we need to be fully prepared as to why replacements are being made, why they're needed. Has there been analysis done on other ways to accomplish the same outcomes, you know, with fewer people. Has it been, has that analysis been done, and has it, you know, before we go ahead and add what could be permanent staff and legacy costs? Because that's gonna be, you know, that's what everybody always pointed, you have less people and, you know, not less employees. So we need to make sure that we've got that well covered.
And I think it's a good point, but it's good to remind folks that in the last couple of years, retirements have happened where replacements didn't happen. So some of that has already happened, and we can help paint the
No
picture.
question, but I think everything needs to be looked at under the eye of necessity and under the eye of resourcefulness, and I guess is the best way, you know, like because yeah, and that the outcome of it maybe, you know, I'm sure these guys have already done that at some level in their own heads, and you know, they know we need this and we need that, but there's a potential to get, you know, questions, critiques in this area. I see that, and you know, we need to make sure that we've done the due diligence work on that. When I say we as a district have done the due diligence work on that to be able to say exactly why we need that or why we don't need that if you don't need it. Yeah.
I know that there looks to be several retirements in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years or more, and that they've mentioned strongly looking at attrition for those retirements. So that is an ongoing thought, and they talk about it all the time. So,
And I think that's the piece I was talking about. You know, we need to make sure that everybody in the district understands.
That's what I'm saying. Yes.
Yeah, that these things are happening. We're thinking about it. We've looked at it, and when I was asking earlier about how are we getting this news out, and I think, Tim, to your point, being proactive in the information.
Just as an example of that. Actually, I'm kind of glad the rest of them are on here right now because we can talk about it a little bit without getting anybody excited. But
we are being recorded too. Just remember that.
But like, you know, I don't even have clear in my head without them right in front of me who the retirees, what positions are retiring. You know, but I do know at the high school, you know, is the only one that's coming to mind as we sit here and speak. You know, there's an English teacher that's retiring. So, you know, as we're looking to make a replacement there, and I'm just picking on that because it's the only one that's in my head. As we're looking to make that replacement, we just want to make sure that we can say that, you know, we can make that question. What's the right way to say it? That when questions come to us about that, why are you making that replacement? We need to be able to say, we went and we analyzed that. We looked at the staff that we have in place. We looked at the students that we have in that, and we looked at this and here's why right here. You know, we thought about maybe is there different ways we could spread this around. We did this, we did that. The reality is we need to refill that position. You know, those are the kind of conversations that need to be had to say, you know, this isn't maintaining the status quo because that's the way it's going to be viewed by some people in the tax community. This is here's the specific reasons why this needs to be done.
Yeah. And I think you know, from what Sarah said and from what we understand, these conversations are happening. We just need to make sure we're conveying it.
Absolutely, and that yes.
Yeah.
Maybe
Sarah,
the conversations are happening, but you know, like a lot of times when you're in the work, there may be things that they collectively know in their heads that are not like reduced down to articulated things that taxpayers can understand and people that are voting on the budget can understand. And, you know, we may need to do that.
yes, that you summed it up really well. I think that's exactly right. Sarah, should we like restart the whole event? Do you know if the internet's down at the school or what happened?
So Lynn texted me just a second ago and she said no internet. So I'm assuming that the internet at the school is down, especially seeing how we lost Fran and Jim. Probably.
Sarah, what are the implications of reconvening the meeting, public notice wise?
So this is considered an open meetings, and we still have to follow the rules of 74 hours notice. The only thing that, being that this meeting is already on the books, we could do a new, here comes Jim again. We could do a new link.
For future reference, so we have this noticed and we've got an open meeting right now. If this happened again, all the people that were at the school had lost connection and the meeting got interrupted, could we then just say, okay, we're just going to adjourn the meeting. The meeting's still open. We're all going to get off. We're going to adjourn the meeting and agree to reconvene at a time later today.
Sarah, I just got service back, so I don't know if the folks that are up at the high school.
So it's probably starting to filter in. I'll text Mike and Jim. As far as that goes, your question goes, Tim, I would have to check with the attorneys on that, because technically it's considered a new meeting if.
Well, no, let's not close the meeting.
Right.
We won't close the meeting. We'll just say we're going to take a break.
Yeah. And then
we'll all come back we'll reconvene. But the meeting's still open in the period of time that we're not available.
Right.
I think we need to think this through for in case something like this happens again on a longer basis.
Right.
And I think the other question, I think if you are going to talk to the attorney, is if, let's just say we were in a board meeting, an open session board meeting, and it got interrupted mid meeting. Is there an emergency meeting provision where, you know what, we got business we have to get done and we need to reconvene this meeting, and unfortunately here's the public notice, it's going to start up again in an hour?
Right. So like you mentioned, you could indicate that we're going to hit pause, and then through the same link and everything, just start it up once everyone has connection again.
Right.
That's, you can say, we're going to start up in a half hour. That gives everyone time to get to their houses or an internet connection or someplace where there's an internet connection.
I just think I think it'd be a good idea for just to kind of walk through some of those scenarios in case something happens in the future on these calls. So
Yeah.
we can continue to get stuff done.
Yeah.
We talked about you when you were gone, Jim.
Talking about all of you while I was.
I see Mike coming on back.
Okay.
He's the one we really need.
What? Lynn's in here with me.
All right.
So I'm done with my presentations.
When you were gone, I was talking. There was one other item, and we continue to talk about it a little bit now. So we'll look for your feedbacks around this. But the the conversation we were having was that I think the other hot button issue in the budget for taxpayers and voters is employee replacement.
Yes.
So I think you did a good job, I think, of outlining the need for the additional janitorial staff, for the current circumstances. As far as retiring teachers and making replacements, I think we want to have a well-articulated plan for each one of those replacement, not plan, a well-articulated dialogue for each one of those replacements. I don't know if Lynn, I see Jim, Fran and Jim. Oh, Lynn's in your office. That's right.
Yeah.
So that the board and the administration can talk clearly about the necessity and, you know, what was analyzed in that replacement, because I think that's going to be a hot button. You know,
Okay.
that gets talked about a lot.
So do you want me to add something to what I'm going to present Tuesday, number one, related to the buses?
Well, I think maybe you and Lynn can get together and talk about, you know, what the analysis is and kind of, you know, reduce it back to writing. What I'm saying is that we need to be prepared, because those questions are going to come about the buses and about, I think, employee replacements or employee additions.
Okay.
Well, those questions are going to be there.
What we talked about while y'all were gone was just being proactive in our wording, kind of the thing we were talking about earlier. How are we letting folks know that the fiscal responsibility and telling the story? I mean, this is obviously in the presentation, but like the example that Tim said about talking about the need for the janitorial staff, but the discussions have been had. We just want to make sure people understand, you know, how the decisions came to be to make those replacements, and with the buses, you know, even though it's been explained in the past every year, explaining the schedule for the buses.
Okay.
So we're talking, okay, so just again, we're talking about adding to the newsletter,
Thank you.
I'm confused. We're adding, you want us to get out there and talk about the one position, the custodian?
No.
All
That's not what I'm saying at all. Like, so I gave the example of, I in my head, I can only, like, I just don't have the list of retirees in front of me. But I know that there's a position in the high school English department that's retiring. So,
Oh, okay.
What I want to say is, okay, yeah, we've looked at ways that we could continue to meet all our program needs, meet all the needs of our students, and do things, you know, without replacing that position. We've looked at this, we've looked at that, whatever it is, and we have made the determination the only way we can move forward is to, you know, have these positions refilled. We're trying to reduce, you know, and make sure that we're only hiring where necessary. We just need to be able to tell that story.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Got it. Right, and so we're not replacing a position at the elementary school, so we need to be able to say that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and I said, you know, what we're talking about is, you know, you guys are working in this every day, you know, where you have this collectively probably in your heads, and maybe even, but you know, I think it needs to be brought down so it can be articulated to taxpayers and people that are going to question this in a very sensible way that they're going to understand.
Okay.
I can say we've had extensive conversations. Lynn has had extensive conversations with me about the elementary position, as has Mike, and we've looked at the TA position, that retirement as well. But that has been ongoing, and it does.
I know you guys are doing the work, and like I said, a lot of times, you know, like, you know, in my job, I got things that are rattling around in my head that sometimes I don't articulate to my customers until I realize they don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I just think for us to put that down and be ready, because those questions are coming, you know, they're going to come.
We gotta look at the budget newsletter.
Okay.
I think she's got it, but we'll check it out.
Would it maybe be helpful to, if it wouldn't be too much work for you, Mike, if you created kind of a talking points kind of list for the board members prior to our Tuesday meeting, the most important things that are going to pop out, like Tim's saying, that people are going to more than likely ask about?
Yeah, I can put something together.
If you, Katie and Tim, if you think that would be helpful for the board meeting, for us.
And as Jim was saying, I know Fran too, we've talked at length about each one of these, so I'm certain that we can put some things together. to frame, to the public as to why ones need to be replaced and why we're not replacing one.
Yeah, so Lynn, to your point, yes, I mean, like if you want to include that information, like maybe not the data into your actual presentation per se,
Right.
be ready to be talking about it. And then, maybe if you do have those talking points, if you want to pass out a sheet to the board members so that, we have a piece of paper that we can fully understand what that is.
Okay.
You can make the choice on whether you want it in your presentation or not.
Okay.
I didn't mean you have to add anything to your presentation. At the board meeting, it would be probably helpful to the board members to have something encapsulated that they can refer to. Because if somebody in the audience asks a specific question of the board, we all need to be prepared. And I mean, you guys do this all the time, but we're just elected officials, so.
Okay, so I'll put that together. I think it's considering the circumstances that we're all in, I think it's a very fair budget. The other thing, Lynn, did you want to mention something about non-resident tuition?
Oh, yeah. So as far as the non-resident tuition, at this point, I am not moving forward with any recommendation to reduce the current tuition. I think right now I'd like to just hold on that because of everything that's going on in our world and in the school district. So I wasn't going to move forward with the recommendation, but to say that it's been talked about, that we've made great progress with a policy, with the soft start, with allowing our teachers, or children to come. But right now, I just don't think, after all the discussion, I would like to move forth with adjusting that tuition at this point.
I think that's wise.
I'm not saying it's not going to happen ever. I'm just saying that knowing what we're going to be up against in September, I'm not in favor of adjusting that at this moment.
Thank you. Fine with that.
Yep, I'm good with that.
And then the ballots, the questions, do we need to?
Yeah. It's on there. So why don't we go through them?
Yeah, well, I'll let Sarah take this one.
There's been some questions about the ballots.
Yeah, questions about the ballots. I mean, it's one of those things. I feel like we're kind of building a plane in midair, Sarah, but you want to talk about that process?
That's a
Okay.
good description.
So the process that we have used is, I know some questions have come up about how are we posting them? Have we thought about what is there, what's cost saving and whatnot? So
What kind of poll?
yeah, in an ordinary world, I would send out anywhere from 40 to 100 of people who have either asked for an absentee ballot or people who are on the permanently disabled list and veterans list. So it's right around there. This year, I anticipated that with the normal year, we don't have to provide postage. So that is different this year. So this year, I had anticipated that we would be going to a mail-in ballot and that we would order our envelopes with the intent that we might have to send them to all of our registered voters in the district. What is a registered voter? A registered voter is anyone who has either registered locally at our district or someone who is registered with the Warren County Board of Elections. That's how we came up with 5,197 registered voters. When we send out the absentee ballot, it's still up for the voter to attest that they are 18 years of age, they have resided in the district within the last 30 days, that their address is accurate and whatnot. So it's up, they still have to attest to all of this information. These ballots will go out to every single one of those voters. They'll attest, they'll return them. What is different this year is the governor said you need to provide postage for those voters to return their ballots. Because we haven't in the past, I did not consider getting a, I think it's called a BDM, where we actually front load postage in the post office, and that pays for our envelopes plus a particular fee for everything that gets returned. So what we did was we spoke to Mail-ins Made Easy, and we also spoke to the post office and asked them, do you have a machine that we can run our return envelopes through to get the postage on there? They indicated no. Both of them indicated no, they don't have that. So our options were either we order additional envelopes that are postage paid that we have to fund an account and maintain and make sure we have enough in there, or do we pay for individual stamps? The most economical for us to do would be to get the individual stamps. We did that. So we are all set. We have our envelopes, which are going to be going to each voter in the district. We have our postage paid envelopes, which will go inside this envelope. We have the outer envelope, which is addressed to Lake George, and we will also have the ballot put in these envelopes. So everything's going out. The only thing different from this year, from previous years, is we're sending it to everyone. It's the same stuff that's going to go in the envelope from year to year, and the postage paid. So we're all set. It's just a matter of, I need to get the final numbers for the budget to have the BOCES print our ballots and have our wonderful stuffing party and get them out. So we're good.
Hey, Sarah,
Yes.
what if, so I wasn't 100% clear on the eligible voter thing, but what if, like, do you have a plan, like, if you have people that say, hey, I'm an eligible voter and I didn't get a ballot?
So those individuals have to notify, if they're going to receive a ballot by mail, they have to notify me 7 days in advance. That's why I want these to go out May 19th to May 22nd. That allows a pusher in our time frame to get the ballot in the person's hand, get it through Mailings Made Easy to put the initial postage on, and get it through the regular mail. That allows the snail mail some time. But if you're saying, did John Doe move into the area 30 days ago and he didn't notify Warren County Board of Elections and he's never previously voted in the Lake George district, he would need to contact me.
I've seen people come up to vote, at the election, and like there's no record of them, in the voter roll. So you have to fill out another thing or whatever when they vote.
So as the person who does those new registrations year to year, those numbers are decreasing because of the electronic system that we use through Bold. That does update most of our eligible voters.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, I would just think about like what happens if you get
they need to contact me. Our website says to contact me. If in doubt, contact me. That's
contact you before the ballot goes out, you're saying?
They can contact me anytime. I have the list right now.
I could just see, I just wouldn't want to have that problem, like, even if it's only a handful of people, I anticipate, whether it's in our district or other districts, there's going to be ballot issues, process issues, questions about challenges, whatever it is that, are made. And the more we can kind of think that through up front and be prepared for maybe some things that potentially could happen.
So again,
so the other thing that comes to mind for me is I would have personally, I guess, preferred that instead of the ballot has to be received back at the district by June 9th, that it gets post-dated by a certain date. And then a lot of,
This isn't our decision. It's the
I know,
governor's.
no, I know that's not our decision. So, but what I'm saying is that, do we have a process to make sure that as we're receiving those things, they're getting like received marked or something like that, so that there's no question that when that was received and ones that are eligible and ones that we receive after are marked and they're not eligible or whatever it is.
So the normal process, and that will continue this year, is when the envelopes come in, they get stamped with the date that they come in. On the day of the election, when our inspectors of elections start looking at those envelopes, the first thing is the envelope needs to be signed by the voter. It needs to be signed because that voter is attesting to all of those things in there. So that's one. If the envelope's not signed, that vote doesn't get counted. If the envelope is signed, then it goes to the next step where they open it up and then they look at the ballot. Is it properly marked? Yes, no. And did they elect board members? The board members is not, you know, you can actually vote on the budget and not board members, or you can vote on board members and not the budget. What's going to be counted is the portion of whatever's properly marked.
Right. Okay. Well, it sounds like this process. I was just thinking, I was nervous about that process of, I mailed. Why didn't I? Yeah.
I'm not concerned about it. We have absentee ballots every year. It's just a matter of how many we actually have. Our inspectors are trained on what is the acceptable procedure of opening up those ballots, whether it's valid or not. It is a whole process that has been in place for years and years. It's just the volume of ballots that we'll have to count this year.
And we have the appropriate and adequate resources to be able to do this in a timely fashion on election day.
Yes. So I have, there's going to be 4 of us that will be in the process of counting. I think that any more than that, there's going to be too many hands in the pot, and that there could be potential errors for counting. It's also going to be live streamed so that people can see us doing it. So
You can't open them until 5 o'clock.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct. We can stamp them that we received them, but we can't open them and we can't validate them until 5 o'clock.
How long do you think it's going to take you to get through that?
I think that our girls are good counters, and hopefully we can get them done within a few hours.
That's impressive, Sarah.
Are you accepting hand-delivered ballots?
As long as they're, they can drop them like in the,
Clock.
yeah, as long as they're dropped by 5 o'clock, then yes.
Okay.
That's why I'll be in the office all day long on that day until
Oh,
then.
I just wanted to know. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I'll be there.
Sorry, we're way off topic, but that's good information because I've been thinking about those things in the election.
Yeah. No, it's going to be a process, and I think that because I anticipated this happening, just the mere ordering the envelopes in advance took a huge relief off of us, because other schools were scrambling. Where do we order these from? Do we overload BOCES? Do we go through Fort Orange Press? Do we go through Phoenix? Who do we go to? The printing companies, they're going to be charging more than what BOCES would be charging. So
thank you for being proactive on that. Sarah, one question I have is, some districts in the region are using their poll list. And we're doing the poll list and the county registration. How did the district decide to go that direction versus what some of the other districts are doing, using the past 4 or 5 years of their district poll list?
So the districts are supposed to be working with their county board of elections to get every registered voter in the district. So we use Bold Systems. They every year update our poll book so that it includes not only us local people who might have gone and signed up only for the school elections because we don't want to vote in the presidential election, but it also includes those people who strictly voted in the, the regular county elections as opposed to the school election. So if you were to ask me on any given year, we're going to have all of that information. I literally can go right to our system right now and pull up that list. It's where the difference is you might have a person ask for a poll list that of only people who voted in last year's election. That's one list. You might have someone say, I want the poll list of every eligible voter in the district. That's a different list. So depending on what you ask for, determines what you get.
Right, but some districts are only mailing to their poll list with the information of if you want a ballot and you're not on that list, request a ballot.
So,
you know how they determine to do that versus what Lake George is doing. And
the guidance that I've read is that you have to provide it to everyone. So if they aren't doing that, then that would be something that a person could question. Did you do the right thing?
I agree with that.
Yeah.
That would be, to me, that sounds like it would be questioned as, repressing voters.
Yeah. And that's all the guidance that I've read. It's, some districts, I've spoken to some clerks and they're like, how did you get your list? I don't understand. And I'm like, you call up your board of elections. You've got to have a point of contact. If they're not there in person, then do the email. They have ways of sending you an Excel sheet or a Word sheet that includes all of those voters within your district. So where we're fortunate is Bold does the heavy lifting for us so that if I say I want all of the registered voters in Queensberry District 1, Bold goes through and maps out the addresses in the district and tells you whether or not they're Lake George residents, school taxpayers, or if they're Queensberry taxpayers. So our heavy lifting is done because we work with Bold. It's the other districts that don't work with the electronic softwares that may have issues.
Thank you. Thank you for all your work on that. And Lynn, thank you for helping host the Adirondack Area School Board Association had a 4:00 meeting all about voting and voting questions. And this was one of the topics they talked about with these discrepancies. So I was curious how we got to the place where we are versus what some of the other districts are doing. So thank you for explaining that. And thanks for all your extra work you've been doing. And again, thank you, Lynn, for helping all the Adirondack area school boards get more information on that.
Thanks. We have a lot of good people that support us, and it's always good to hear from them, especially times like this. And I thought that Brian Fressler from NISBA did a particularly good job. He's the kind of new governmental. He's been with NISBA a while, but now he's their governmental relations person, and he's just so well informed. So thank you, Katie. I appreciate that.
So one of the things I can honestly say that concerns me about the mail-in voting is when a person comes in person and they see our poll list and there's I'm Jane Doe and I see my husband here, John Doe, is on the list. He passed away. Can you remove it? We can do it locally, but if we don't know someone passed away, that person may still be on our list, especially if they didn't contact Warren County Board of Elections, because the regular polling is unless someone brings it to your attention, that person remains on the list for 7 years, whether they vote or not. So there could potentially be those people that get a ballot that may be offended because their spouse passed away. The other thing is, how many times have we run into where an adult child is still listing their parent's address, and they may get a ballot because at the Warren County Board of Elections and at our level, it looks like they're still residing at that house. Where where a person can contest it is if John Doe signs his ballot that he resides there at the address and is an eligible voter, a person could contest that and say, no, John Doe doesn't live at mom's house. John Doe lives in Massachusetts for the last 3 years. So that's the problem with mail-in voting.
I think we lost Mike and Lynn.
Oh, he's got mute on.
I'm here.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yes.
I see you.
I'm all set unless anybody has any other questions or concerns.
No, I thought this was a really well-crafted meeting, a lot of great information, and Mike, you're doing a great job.
Thank you. I'll get to work on my narrative here, and I got a property tax report card to fill out here too.
Is that all?
Thank you, Mike.
Mike, I know I'm a pain with those things, but I think it'll serve us well in this budget cycle.
No, absolutely.
Tim, you could probably just say you're a pain.
Yeah, you can stop there, right?
Yeah, everything looks, it's very aesthetically appealing, the presentations and just being proactive with the wording. Tim, I think Tim summed it up well. Thank you so much, Mike.
Okay, sounds good, everybody. Thank you.
Wait, before the group goes. Oh, I think he hung up. Oh, no, you're still there, Mike. Before the group goes, can we just get like a verbal that it's good for me to order our ballots with the figures that Mike put forth?
I don't.
You have to wait till after the board meeting? Would that be smart?
Well, we can, but then we are delaying our time frame because it takes these at least 2 days to order the ballots. It'll take a good day to stuff the ballots.
So,
Then
Sarah, we can't decide that for you as a committee. We can't make a decision. I have no problem making that recommendation and supporting that if you do it. If that money is in the budget and can be expended without authorization from the board, absolutely. We have to get it done.
Yeah.
So, Mike, do you know, that doesn't require an authorization from the board to expend that money? It's not a contract that we're entering into. It's a district expenditure.
Well, don't we have to ratify at some point?
Yeah, that's the issue would be is can we do it before the budget is officially adopted?
That's coming out of this year's money, right? I mean, you have an approved.
And she needs the number to put on to go to the printer.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I was way off on you. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just, with all the questions that have risen on this is, is there going to be any issues with the board coming back and saying, we don't want to go out at 1.5%. We want to go out at something else lower, and we need to rethink this. And we're on a time frame here, so any delay after the 19th is going to be tough to meet those mailing deadlines.
I don't think. My gut is telling me I don't think we could put that number down without board discussion and a board vote. And
it has to be ratified at some point.
Absolutely. If we need to move that up, that timeline, talk to Tricia about the scheduling another meeting. If we need to get ahead of something, let's get ahead of it.
Well, today's Friday morning. This is Tuesday night.
It's not enough time to change the meeting from Tuesday.
The option would be Monday.
Oh, so it's just Tuesday. So all right, I'm with you. Yeah, well, I think we have to. I don't think we can do that.
It takes 2 days for the printer to, at least 2 days for the printer to print them. then, so at the earliest, I could notify them on Wednesday. The earliest I can get them back is Friday, which was the drop dead last date I wanted to get these envelopes out. Because mailings made easy will pick them up and it'll be a delay. So
it would get to the voters, like if it went on the timeline of after the Tuesday's vote, it would get to voters right around the time of the May 26th public presentation. It would get, they would get their ballots that day.
that's not a guarantee.
Or the next day.
It's not a
Sometime that
guarantee.
week. Right.
Because we have to rely on the U.S. Postal Service to get it right out, and we also have to rely on Mailings Made Easy to put the stamp on the envelopes.
Okay.
And
So-
everyone's
Is there any guidance out there on this? Because every school district is going to be in the same position.
a lot of districts have already approved their budgets.
I wouldn't say a lot of them. I'd say many of them moved till, some of them have, but
Yeah.
So Sarah,
If voters got it,
What do you think?
the ballots by toward the end of next week, that's plenty of time for them to vote and get them back in, and for people to, if somebody for some reason didn't get a ballot, that would still be enough time for them to email you and request one. And still, because the date that has to be back in is what, June 5th?
June 9th.
June 9th. Okay, so that's right, 5 p.m. of. So I think the turnaround time is still there, and the timing.
can we just walk through that again, Sarah?
So
The meetings on
being
Tuesday.
ambitious, if we're being ambitious, we are assuming that a reduced staff at Mailings Made Easy is going to get our stuff done in a timely manner. Then BOCES would have our ballots information by Wednesday. They would have to print it. So Wednesday, Thursday, get them to us by Friday. Get the envelopes stuffed before Mailings Made Easy comes on Friday. So in a perfect world, Mailings Made Easy would have it on Friday. And then maybe it would be mailed by Monday.
The date?
Which is 23rd, 24th, the 25th.
Yep.
So that's like basically if it gets mailed that day,
2 weeks.
let's say it's a couple days for people to get them in their mail, in their
The
mailbox.
dead day based on the deadline is the 26th, but that's assuming that everything works perfectly from the 19th forward. That doesn't give us any hiccup time.
So
We go with that. So, I mean, again, we can let Mailings Made Easy know that we're not going to get it to them till Friday, but it needs to go out either Friday or Saturday.
So if you get,
Because Mailings Made Easy runs it through their meter machine and then they send it to the post office. So if I mail something on Monday through Mailings Made Easy, it might not actually get out in the mail until Wednesday.
I mean, I guess I'm feeling like so it has to be received by the school June 9th, and it's all local mail. I mean, even if people didn't send their ballot back until June 2nd, that's a week, for it to get back. So as long as they're getting it by that week of the 23rd, by the end of that week, and it'll be after the 26th public hearing of the budget. And so, I mean, because I just don't feel like without having our full board meeting,
oh yeah, we can't do that.
voting on it, we can't agree to put that number down. But I feel like we'll still be able to give people plenty of time to get that piece of mail.
I'm not concerned about the people. I'm getting it back in. I'm concerned them getting it in the first place if we don't expedite things. But
Anything, if
if
anything,
you guys feel comfortable with it, then fine. I'm good with it. But
if anything goes wrong in the process,
that
any
concerns
hiccup
me,
in the
but
process, it's gonna impact the timeline.
correct.
But
But
if we
the
send
worst-
out a budget that isn't ratified, that's a problem.
Yeah. Well, Sarah, do you need more hands on deck?
It's not
Next
a matter
Friday?
of hands. It's not a matter of hands. It's just making sure that everything gets going.
What I was thinking about, Sarah, was the stuffing day.
That's what I mean, on Friday, the stuffing day.
I've got people that are willing to come in. I'm concerned more about things that are outside of us that is gonna prevent it from getting in people's hands. But we just have to go with it.
Everybody's just gonna have to have their fingers crossed because the budget's got to be ratified before we send it out, or that puts us in a really awkward position.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Sarah.
I'm just, like I said, I'm very cautious. I like to get my stuff out in
I
a timely manner. And if I don't have control over another entity, then that's concerns me.
right. I know.
Why don't we reschedule the meeting to Monday? Okay, take another day.
Is that a problem, Mike or Lynn?
No, it's fine with me.
That would at least be a day, Sarah. Would that be helpful?
Everything's been noticed, so yeah. No, it doesn't.
So,
Uh,
I mean, it gives you another day. I mean,
yeah, no, it doesn't help.
how about if we do it tomorrow? How about if we do it tonight?
Where's the wine?
I'm trying to think outside of the box here. I mean, I don't care if we do it tomorrow. Reschedule it for tomorrow.
We can't though because we have
24.
notices.
Let's define an emergency.
Yeah,
We're
that's
concerned about having
that.
we're concerned about having, a public election go awry because of a timeline that we control. To me, that says, why could you not make a change to control that?
If there's still questions about the budget though, I would rather.
Oh, yeah, you're right. The budget thing. You're right.
I would rather have those.
Yep.
Keep with the timeline that that the meeting that we had scheduled instead
It's
of.
really the public hearing piece of it. I forgot about that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It's not just us.
Yeah.
All right. Everybody keep your fingers crossed.
Okay.
So I'll just be in contact with Mealings Made Easy and let them know the importance of making sure that these get done.
Just get your witch hat and broom out, girl.
Yeah.
Who owns Mailings Made Easy?
I don't know.
It used to be Joe Vogel, but Joe died. Does Pam own it? The Pam Vogel?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Sure.
I've never spoken to a Pam Vogel. I've always spoken to just some of the workers there.
Okay.
I don't think we can control that one. Tim.
I could, if Joe was still alive, I could. I knew Joe pretty well. Joe, you got to get this done for us.
Well, just got to go with best hope.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.